goal 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have goal here.
6.
Yes, and then we have another goal.
2.
2.
And sustainability.
Right.
Got it.
Hi, I'm Michael Killen. What is the most important environmental project in the state of California in the United States? On this show, we're going to discuss what we think is the most important environmental plan of the United States. And we're also going to discuss what is the most important goal of that particular plan. And I'm honored tonight, a dear friend of mine, Jeb Eddy. He is an environmental activist, and sometimes he thinks I work for him and the environmental activists because he always wants me to do more and more work. Jeb is pretty much going to be running this show tonight. So, Jeb.
My friend.
Thank you very much for being kind to come and ask me questions and make comments about the topic of this show.
Well, one of the things I often do with you, my friend, is interrupt. So one of the things I would like to interrupt first, this looks like a new painting. We'll get to some of its details and internals later. What is the name of this new creation of yours?
It's a non-pretentious title, Safeguard California, an opportunity for other states and countries to learn.
I'm looking forward to learning. So a way to explore this and other things is to learn a little bit about more your past and some of the things you're doing now and where this and some of your other creative stuff might do. So years ago, you were a technology consultant and research kind of person. You had your own company?
Yes, when I was a very young man, I decided I couldn't find a good job that fit my skills. So I decided to become a publisher of studies for business executives, managers, CEOs, and I went on to produce something like 400 studies that analyze various business opportunities, the direction of the computer industry, the direction of the telecommunication, the banking industry, management thought. And I also produced about, a dozen white papers on various emerging topics.
And a lot of that was technology?
Yeah, a lot of it was technology, and it was on topics such as when we first realized the internet was emerging. I think I published the first study on the impact of the internet, and I know I definitely published the first important study on the opening of China. So when I was a young kid, I got invited to go to China and meet with the head of the Academy of Sciences, and that was after I went with a team to all the universities that were teaching computer science, and then I got the job to go and synthesize what I have observed and then to share with him how the People's Republic of China was teaching computer science and how we did it in the United States and France. And from that experience, that actually opened the door for me to be a publisher because I was one of the few Caucasians to get to go into that country and to meet with, top level. And I came out And 35 days later, I published my first study on how to do business in China.
Wow, way ahead of the times. But you also worked for Dr. An Wang.
Yes, and he was the founder of Wang Laboratories, and he was one of the great founders of the computer industry. And I was honored 5 years after high school, and I wasn't fortunate to really go to college. 5 years after high school, I got a job there as a clerk. 8 weeks or 6 weeks later, he made an announcement and he appointed me Director of Education of the United States Sales Force.
For which you were thoroughly qualified, I'm sure. But you shared with me a really interesting sort of question or a request that he made of you of the kind of stuff that he hoped to get from you.
Yeah, he would come to me and say, Michael, you know Vice President, but you know IBM just came out with a new computer. It's faster, it's better, less expensive, and it's going to take me almost a year to build anything to compete with that. And I said, yes. And he said, at noon, at lunch, all the vice presidents are coming, and we're going to spend the whole afternoon thinking about and discussing what we should do to meet this competitive threat. Now, you know Vice President, so you can't come. I said, okay. He says, but at 6 o'clock, I come to you, and I ask you for an idea, a good idea, that none of my vice presidents would think. And you know, at 6 o'clock, he came and he would say, what is the idea that I should consider? Now, that was a historic moment for me because in my life, no one ever asked me to do anything special. And, you know, and it started me having a practice of trying to think about things that are important that nobody else might be thinking about.
And one of the ways that nobody else thinks about presenting ideas shows up in these brilliant colors and symbols that we'll get onto a bit more. You had three particularly good friends, Carol Harrington, Steve Schneider, and Steve Zornetzer.
Oh, yeah.
How did the three of them contribute to the creation of, well, you're going to put on the sustainability painting, perhaps? That particular painting, which is such an important step in your...
All right, I'll get to that. But first of all, let me honor Carol Harrington. She is an activist, a community activist, and she had a relationship with Steve Schneider. She was helping him meet important people.
And he was a Stanford faculty guy.
Oh, yes.
Who ended up winning part of the Nobel Prize some years later.
He worked in the Woods Institute of the Environment at Stanford University, and he emerged as one of the grounding leaders of the climate change movement, you know, an attempt to find solutions. And he had advised multiple presidential organizations on the threat, and he lobbied them to try to get them to do different things. And Carol knew him, and then she bumped into me at an event, and she asked, what do I do? And I said, well, I'm painting some things, and I had just decided to make I just made a couple of paintings on climate change for the wealthy and climate change for the rest of us. And she went out and tracked them down on the web. And then she went to Steve and she said, Steve, you got to meet this guy. And she asked me to go meet him, but I knew so little about climate change. And here he is, a couple of PhDs, you might say, on the subject. And I didn't pursue him because I didn't have any good questions to ask him. And he pursued me, and he grabbed hold of me, wanted me to go to dinner with him, meet him in his meetings. He wanted to go on TV with me. He wanted to put on an event where people would come thinking he was the keynote speaker, but he decided it would be me who would be the speaker, the key speaker. He wanted me to paint climate change in such a way that it would help spread the the information that there is a great threat, and he also wanted me to paint solutions. And that's how I got involved, actually, in painting climate change. It was Carol going to Steve Schneider, and Schneider coming to me and lobbying me to...
And how did NASA show up? And that really interesting, how big is the sustainability painting? Want to cut it in?
Okay, so apparently NASA, one of the fellows there, Steve Hipskin, used to work, head of Earth Sciences for NASA Ames, used to work in the same facility in Colorado with Steve Schneider, and he respected and admired Steve.
With good reason.
And he apparently saw Steve Schneider and me in public, and maybe with one of my paintings, and all of a sudden I received an email from NASA Ames. I didn't open it for a few days because what in the world would a NASA be writing to me for? I opened up the email and it says, Michael, NASA is building a building called Sustainability Base. We have decided we want you to get inspired. We want to help you get inspired to make a painting inspired by what we're going to do in this building and the building. And so anyway, that also was a life-changing experience because I met with Zornetzer, the #2 man of NASA Ames, and I asked him, well, give me an idea what you're looking for. He says, Michael, we want to give the public and Congress the feeling that we, NASA, went out in space and we looked down at Earth and we saw Earth is in trouble and we're landing at Moffett Field at a place that we're building called Sustainability Base. And we want to make sure the public realizes we were one of the founding developers of solar panels, and we use wind and other things.
Water purification on the
Yes.
satellites? On
Yes. So I said, what do you want from me? He says, see this gigantic wall? Would you make a painting? And I said, fine. So I got the picture, arriving from up there, seeing we're in trouble, and I said, I'll make it. When do you need it? And he said, can you make it in 5 months? And I said, of course. He said, we'll have it for the opening celebration. And so that led me to make a painting sustainability.
One of the things I'm going to ask you a couple of times here, well,
maybe
you were going to...
Maybe our team has, if they have a chance, they can bring up the painting sustainability.
Okay, it's one of my favorites, and if it's available, we could pop it in.
So now the fact that I got to work on sustainability, and I made sustainability, I had to think about what is sustainability, and to me it's a zeitgeist, it's a spirit thought, it's a term that is permeating the world. We're all tending to think about sustainability, but as I made that painting, I also thought, what comes after that zeitgeist? Because I had this feeling just trying to be sustainable is not good enough. I think you have to be a little more proactive. And it got me thinking about the other zeitgeists that are related to the grouping of concepts like sustainability.
Such as?
Such as resilience.
Resilience.
And resilience is prepared to be able to spring back from the hits. And then I also know we think about adaptation. You can't exactly spring back from everything, and you got to roll with the punches. That's how I see adaptation. Move back from the shore lines. Don't build your big hotels where the water is going to come up or the wind is going to be terrific. And then the last one I started to think about was mitigation. And to me, mitigation is a more active, proactive, go out and minimize the threat that's coming your way. Could be a little violent and...
So how about a tour?
a tour of this?
Could you want to explain a little bit of what's going on back here for me?
Okay, and before I do that, I started the show with a little bit of a tease for our audience and hope to keep them here. In my opinion, and I wonder what you think about this, the most important environmental project in the United States is the state of California's climate plan. In my opinion, it dwarfs every other environmental project, and it dwarfs it for a lot of reasons. It's extensive, well thought out, and it has a unity of command. You know, it's run by the governor and his administration.
There's 6 major pieces to it, as I wrote, 6 sort of major goals.
Yes.
And this is related to...
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, this one is, I tend to think the goal of Safeguard California has to be the most important goal. It's like protect the patient. Everything that happens in the emergency room has to be to save the patient, protect the patient. Safeguard California is the bottom line. It's the most important goal, in my opinion, of the state of California's climate plan.
So I know an outline of the state of California shows up. Can we stand up and
sure.
Just spend a moment looking at some of the interesting symbolism here? What do we got? That's clearly California.
Right here.
Here we have, who is the character in the blue hat on the horse?
Don Quixote.
Don Quixote, bringing in not windmills, but action, it seems to me. This looks like it is a large cloud of accumulated problems in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Is that close to right?
Greenhouse gases, okay. And as we know from our study of literature, Don Quixote, first of all, he may be the most famous, important character, fictional character ever. And he woke up one morning. He was a broken old down man, pretty much like me, and he decided to go out and fight the greatest giants and correct the greatest wrongs of his time. And he got himself a horse, he got himself an assistant, he got himself a big lance, and he was out fighting the great giants, and he saw one day on a hill, I think it was 500 windmills, and he assumed with their arms.
So this looks suspiciously like a windmill.
Yes.
And he is attacking them not with the point, but with some of the power that he is bringing to this situation. What's the building? What's the windmill? What are the flows going on here?
This is the windmill, and to him, the windmill with its arms was the great giants, the great threats. So I tapped into his mythology, his story, and I created a windmill, and I put on the blades of it, the arms, some of the great threats to California. And here's a tree, and the tree is on fire. You know, certain parts of this state, it's a really great, and it's caused
fires.
Climate change is one of the great factors that makes the trees in our state more likely to, and the fumes go up, the greenhouse gas go up there, and over here another threat is the tailpipe, the emissions coming out.
Exhaust from a car.
Yes, and we in this state are trying as hard as we can to minimize the exhausts that contribute to greenhouse gases. And these are nothing more than gas burners. Gas burners. And let's take Palo Alto. Palo Alto, of course, is a very advanced city. It is trying to rewrite zoning codes to minimize people's use.
Fossil fuel.
Yep, but now, you know, they've gotten away from coal. oil. Their focus now is to get rid of gas. You know,
Go
gas.
go to electric. Our family, we have an electric car, and we're trying to do more and more electricity in our house.
So this is the threat of natural gas, the kind of gas service you get from PG&E. And we burn the gas for cooking and sometimes
And
heating.
it generates more of the
more
cloud up here.
And on this windmill, it's part of a turbine. And many of the turbines today are they use coal to make them work. They use oil to make them. They pump gas inside of them, explode the gas, and they spin. And when you use gas, natural gas,
More CO2.
all of these contribute to more greenhouse gases that come up here. And the reason I put the lance, the weapon, the way I did was, this is sort of, I think of it like a major electric shock that goes out and hits the most important part of the windmill, where these things spin around. I have an electric shock because what's really happening around the world now, and especially in California, we are electrifying everything to get away from having to use
Fossil fuel.
internal combustion engine and everything. So my Don Quixote is very modern. He is using the most advanced trend to try to slow down the threat.
And I have seen this magnificent symbol before in yellow, the symbol for resilience, springing back.
No? Life gets complicated.
Life gets
This
complicated.
is sustainability. We
well,
want to go on
all right.
forever. I know it was just a slip on your part.
Okay.
And for the state of California to have plans to safeguard it, okay, I believe it has to have a strong element of sustainability throughout the whole plan. And then resilience is another zeitgeist, another element of the strategy, for anybody's strategy. Here's a spring being part of the sustainability to spring back from the hits. Spring back from the hits, be sustainable. And then what the state is especially concentrating on is the zeitgeist, or the element of adaptation. Roll with the punch. And these are sort of like logs that roll. And building the pyramids, they roll things. Right. And then the fourth, remember, we have sustainability, resilience, adaptation, and the last one is
The big M.
The big M, mitigation. Go out and minimize the threat. And who better symbolizes going out to fight the great threats than the great Don Quixote?
And I'm a little worried about time, but what's going on over here finally?
Before I answer that, thinking about Don Quixote reminded me of Jim Sweeney, who's putting on the Silicon Valley Energy Summit, and who once accused me in public of tilting at windmills.
Keep it up.
He saw a little madness in my head and my willing to fight. June 21st, he's putting on his big annual Silicon Valley Energy Summit.
At Stanford?
Yeah. This painting will be there in the Arriaga in the lobby. And maybe the team can come up with another image, and that other image would be another one of the goals of the state. It's called goal number 2, which is reduce the amount of petroleum used by vehicles by 50%. Now, this interests you, huh?
Yep.
Well, what do you think it is?
Well, one of the things, you always paint a story that has a flow to it. So we sort of get over here through these rich blue rivers and use sustainability and resilience. These look like gold bricks from the gold mining era of California, perhaps. Dedicated set of emotion, feelings, affection, and that looks suspiciously like a brain. How close is that?
Very good, very good. So, but let me do this. Remember, there's 4 elements of the strategy: sustainability, resilience, adaptation, mitigation. Okay, and our state is trying to inform decision makers all around the world who run countries, companies, that we have put together a great plan, and they can learn from California's plan. But then some people may say, who's California? They don't have a chance of significantly influencing the world. Well, or having their plan work. Well, California has the money. I mean, we got the money. And we have heart. I mean, we are concerned with immigrants and children who are being separated from their family. We are concerned what's going to happen to people in other parts of the world who are going to be washed away by the rising. So we got the money, we got the heart, and this state has the brain power. I mean, there is so much brain power in this state. And you put all that together and you tie it in with the 4 elements and the other great things the state has put together. And
we're going to have some little cards and description of about some of these pieces to help make sure everybody understands. And this is not the end. You've got some more. You got some more ideas for future paintings.
yes, well, I have packaged the art I'm making into a project, and it's called Connect to California's Climate Plan. So when I make paintings like this, my goal is for the art to appear on television. It can appear on television a lot since I have a syndicated TV show and a few stations that air my show. I don't always need you. And this is, I think of my art as an event art. It's so big. It's made for events. It's made to help planners assure the success of their event. So I have forgot where I was going. Oh, I know where I'm going. So I make all this art to bring people to California's climate plan. To California's climate plan. That's why I call it Connect. Yeah.
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Well.
We didn't finish. More to come.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's sort of commercial time. It's time for me to thank Jeb Eddy for helping me share. And let me just briefly end. The most important climate plan in the environmental plan in the coming out of California is the state of California's. Safeguard California is the most important goal of that plan.
And what's your name again?
I'm Michael Killen, and my friend over here who's been very helpful is Jeb Eddy. I don't trust them.